Hard to believe the 2024 elections are now just 3 months away. And we have tremendous concerns in the mix of it all regarding election integrity. And those concerns are intensifying. In fact, just this month already, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed a previous decision and is now going to allow Arizona residents without proof of citizenship to vote in this upcoming election. And all this comes as the Biden administration has allowed millions of migrants to pour into our country, as you well know. And so all of this now is ripe for exploitation. And the left, and I've heard them personally say this, they claim that none of this is happening. Illegals are not voting. So what do we need to be worried about? That's what they want to say. Well, let's talk about this. Joining me now to discuss this and more is Cleta Mitchell. She's a senior legal fellow at the Conservative Partnership Institute. She's also a former member of the advisory board for the Election Assistance Commission, and she founded the Election Integrity Network and the Foundation for Accountability and Integrity in Elections Fund, or also known as FAIR. Cleta, welcome back to Washington Watch. Always great to have you.
Great to see you, Jody. Thank you.
All right. First of all, let's go to the ruling last Thursday by the Ninth Circuit. When I first heard this, Cleta, I've got to admit my jaw dropped. It's like, you have got to be kidding me. After what Arizona had gone through to try to protect illegals from voting, the Ninth Circuit just reverses it all. Tell us about it.
Well, poor Arizona. They've been trying for 20 years to be able to get documentary proof of citizenship in order to be able to register to vote in that state, literally starting in the early 2000s. And there is a statute in Arizona that is on the books in Arizona that you have to provide proof of citizenship, documentary proof of citizenship when you register to vote. And they asked the Election Assistance Commission about a decade ago to add that to the federal form for use in Arizona, because Congress, in its infinite wisdom, 31 years ago, passed what we call the Motor Voter Bill that requires every state to accept and use this federal form for voter registration. Arizona wanted to make sure that the form was consistent with its state law requiring documentary proof of citizenship. However, the Supreme Court of the United States said that the Election Assistance Commission didn't have the authority to do that because Congress didn't put it in the language of the statute. So what the Supreme Court ordered as a remedy 11 years ago, it was for Arizona to be able to have two separate voter rolls. If you want to vote in state elections, you have to provide documentary proof of citizenship. But if you don't have documentary proof of citizenship, guess what? You can register to vote on the federal only list, which means if you don't prove citizenship, you can get a ballot for president, U.S. Senate, and U.S. House. And the Arizona legislature, it is unbelievable. And the Arizona legislature came in this year or last year and tried to strengthen the provisions to get back at the issue of requiring citizenship proof to register to vote in any election. A lower court judge, federal court judge, Obama appointee, denied that, but stayed the decision. It went up to the Ninth Circuit, and the panel at the Ninth Circuit said, well, actually, we're not going to stay that pending the appeal, so that you can, in the meanwhile, continue to ask for documentary proof of citizenship. But then the full panel of the full en banc court in the Ninth Circuit just last week said, no, you can't. So they reimposed a stay. I presume, and I actually was thinking about this morning, the RNC is one of the parties in the state party of Georgia. I presume they're going to take an immediate appeal. I hope that they'll move for emergency consideration by the U.S. Supreme Court. And I wish that the Trump campaign would also weigh in, and a lot of people would weigh in and ask the court to keep Arizona from sending ballots to people who are not confirmed to be U.S. citizens. That is really, Jody, if you want to pick the number one thing I'm worried about for 2024, That's it. And it's not just in
Yeah.
Arizona, it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
It is. It absolutely is. And that's, I mean, that's a major topic of mine as well. We've got to, every illegal vote takes away a vote from a citizen. And that is just absolutely unacceptable. You know, I was in so many of the hearings during my time in Congress, hearing the Democrats say this type of stuff is not happening. We already have laws that say it's illegal for an illegal individual to vote in federal elections. It's not happening. Well, it's also a law not to speed. But all you have to do is go on any interstate, and no one is driving the speed limit. And so the argument that they have is so bogus. How do we know that this is, in fact, an issue, despite the fact that there are laws on the books?
Well, I think that we know that it's an issue because we know that there are non-citizens on the voter rolls. And one of the things that you have to remember is that this has happened gradually. And the laws regarding, well, the Help America Vote Act was passed in after the 2000 presidential election. So it's passed in 2002. And it says that every state, there's a federal law, it says every state must verify identity and residency of a voter before adding that person to the voter rolls. What's missing from that list? Citizenship. Now, and because nobody could envision a time when we would have massive disregard of our border laws, our immigration laws by the existing administration. And so what we have is this massive number of illegals coming across the border. We have laws on the books against that. They're here illegally, but somehow we're supposed to imagine that the same people who came across the border illegally are somehow going to say, oh, but it's illegal for me to register and vote. I mean, Come on, man, as to quote a person who is supposed to be our president, but we're not sure if he is or not. But so the two things that the federal law requires is confirming identity and residency for registration. Well, guess what? You know how you do that under this federal law? Driver's license number and social security number. Every state issues driver's licenses to non-citizens, every state. 19 states in the District of Columbia issue driver's licenses to illegals. So what does that verify? It doesn't verify citizenship. And the Social Security Administration issues social security numbers to non-citizens because they are supposed to be working with work permits. If they're here illegally, this administration has been handing out all kinds of exemptions and statutory categories to these illegals, asylees, parolees. I don't even know all these terms, but they can get Social Security numbers. So the only two ways that we have for verifying citizenship they don't verify citizenship at all. So we have formed, Jody, the Only Citizens Vote Coalition. It's a national coalition. Go to the website, www.onlycitizensvotecoalition.com, and look at the website, sign up to receive the newsletter. We send out a weekly newsletter. We've created a national working group on Only Citizens Vote that meets by Zoom every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. It's free. We're trying to get people activated. We've created toolkits and resources, and we're going to have a national week in September to shine bright light on the National Only Citizens Vote Week. Because I'm telling you what, we have got to create essentially a National Citizens Watch at our local DMVs. That's where they're going to get their driver's licenses and ID cards, and they're getting those, and then they are getting registered to vote. And once they get on those rolls, you have no way of knowing whether they're voting. When the left says that doesn't happen, how do they know? You don't have an administration that will begin to try to enforce the law. How do they know? They don't know.
They know. That's why the borders have been open.
They do know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point. That's why the borders have been wide open for the last 3.5 years. And there's a lot of chatter in the midst of all of this about getting migrants on the voter rolls for ballot harvesting. I mean, that's part of the equation in all of this as well, isn't it?
Well, yes, because remember, when we talk about harvesting, we're talking about you have to have planted something. And so what they planted are, I believe, they planted these left-wing non-governmental organizations, including church groups. Catholic Charities is number one. Lutheran Social Services is number two. They're very left-wing. They don't believe in our immigration laws. They're helping all of these migrants across the border and shepherding them around the country. And certainly, as I say, when you go into the driver's license agency to get a driver's license, these agents in these agencies have been told for 30 years they have to register everybody who comes in to see them to get a driver's license. And we have a number of states, Michigan, Georgia, for example, other states. When you get a driver's license, you are automatically registered to vote unless you opt out. So, we're finding pockets all over the country of these registrations.
Absolutely. And Cleta, you mentioned Georgia. Let me just throw this out. Look, you and I both know we've had conversations. We've been in meetings where this has just been the topic. But this upcoming election is very likely going to come down to just a few thousand votes in some of these swing states. But you mentioned Georgia. There's some estimated 339,000 non-citizens living in Georgia, and this is a state, my home state, where President Biden won 2020 by fewer than 12,000 votes. So give us your perspective on how little really it takes to swing an election.
Well, it takes just a very few. And in fact, there is a website called justfacts.com. And this is run by a researcher who does all this research. And he says on a conservative, very conservative basis, that 10 to 12% of those who are in this country who are non-citizens, and that includes both people here legally and illegally, because we have many, many people here who are here legally, and we have students who have student visas, we have people with work visas, we have other permanent residents, people have the green card, plus all these illegals. If you say 10, how many are there? We hear different estimates. The Department of Homeland Security says they don't know how many there are, but let's take the estimates I read a week ago, 22 million. If 10% of those 22 million actually register and vote, I mean, some small percentage. How many does it take to flip Utah, which has mainly mail-in voting? How many does it take to flip North Dakota, which doesn't have voter registration? People just show up and vote. And how are they supposed to deal with that if there's this influx of illegals or non-citizens who just show up and vote?
Absolutely. And I'll just say this, Cleta. Yeah, in my home state, again, of Georgia, of that 339,000, 14% of them are registered to vote. That's according to a study that came out this week. All right, we've only got a little over about a minute and a half. How is this coming November going to be different from 2020? Is there a silver lining? Is there hope going into this election?
Well, look, I mean, I've been working on this for 3 years, and sometimes I think, oh, what have we done? But we have so many people around the country who've worked so hard on trying to clean voter rolls and all that kind of thing. And I do urge people to sign up and be a poll observer and sign up to be an election worker. We need workers who are not just paid by left-wing groups. But I think that I really do believe that it is going to take all of us getting everyone we know to vote. Everyone we know, because honestly, I think President Trump has to be, I'm a Trump supporter, and I think he has to win by such big margins that they can't they can't manipulate the outcome. And so the closer it is, the harder it is for us to overcome the shenanigans. But number one thing, let's all work hard at getting our friends and neighbors and family members to register, to vote, and to look around and basically create a national neighborhood watch. Do we see pockets of illegals registering at driver's license agencies? Raise the stink about it in your local communities.
Yes.
It's just going to take all of us being very loud. And it's hard sometimes because the left is so loud. They're so loud.
Well, Cleta, we say it around here at FRC all the time. Pray, vote, stand. That's what it's going to take. Cleta Mitchell, founder of Election Integrity Network and senior legal fellow at the Conservative Partnership Institute, always an honor to have you. Thank you so much for coming on the
Thank you.
program, and your expertise in this is enormous. Thank you.